Go.
And we are, I can't. And we are live, folks. Welcome to the Sit Down Standard, the podcast celebrating all the amazing things you can do while sitting, whether it's enjoying movies, watching television, or playing games. I'm one of your hosts, David Bray. I'm joined as always by Gerald Bales.
Hi.
Running out of breath. And not Jordan Peterson.
No.
It's just Gerald. That's all
Just
we
me.
need. Just Gerald.
I count as like two people in most states anyway, so it makes sense.
But before we start the podcast, I always want to let everyone know we broadcast the podcast live on Periscope. So if you're watching or listening to this, go to Twitter, follow us. And we post, what are they called? Notifications to let you know that we're broadcasting the podcast live. But before we start anything, which we normally get into what you're doing, don't worry, I'll sing, folks.
Yeah, I know you're waiting patiently
okay.
for that, but
But first, I actually want to open up with, we got an email bag.
second in a week or second time in a row.
It's very good. This is a good email. This is from one of our fans, Paul Sawyer the Third. I always want to be a third. Like, like third, fourth. Like, I had a friend that was like the fourth. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, but then you're like, what's his name going to be? We already know. Not very original.
Yeah, but if you can get to the fourth and fifth, that's pretty cool. Then you're like son of begotten. Like, I like.
I guess, yeah.
Anyways, his email is, I had a question for you guys and future topic for the podcast. So this is what he had a question about. He wanted to know if there's any comics that have ever plucked our heartstrings or made us shed some tears or flat out weep. Openly weep. He talked about he usually reads a lot of comic books, like the popular ones, Alien, Star Wars universe, anything from Dark Horse. He loves Dark Horse comics. But what he wanted to know was he recently read Superman Red Son and essentially got him pretty upset. He had tissues, reaching for tissues. And has there ever been a comic or any kind of superhero medium that has made you cry or plucked at your heartstrings?
Well, as regular listeners of the podcast know, I didn't really enjoy, not that I didn't enjoy, I didn't really read comics as a kid, so like my comic experience comes from me as an adult buying all the new Star Wars canon comics.
Yeah.
And none of those have really got me emotional or anything like that, whatever. But I did read a lot of comic strips growing up as a kid. I was a very big fan of, was it Farside?
Farside, yeah.
Farside's good stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's
ultimate
like funny,
favorite
right?
comic strip, and I think just all around, I mean, are comic strips same as comics?
Yeah, of course. I think so.
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes, best of all time. And I'm pretty sure there are a couple times, I'm rereading that right now, I'm on the second book of it.
You got like the big anthology, right, of all
Yeah,
of
wife
them, right?
got it for me. Yeah,
awesome.
I'm on like the second book. But there are definitely a couple times in there where you're just like, man, that is like so like the writing is very good, the animation of course is excellent, but there are a couple times in the little story arcs where it's like,
Oh, so they actually have like continuing stories? I just remember it being like a 4-panel comic where it's like, oh, you have to tell it. It's actually hard to tell like a joke in 2 seconds.
Well, of course it is, but they have like overarching storylines throughout the strip.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there are a couple times there, like there's a part where he finds a little baby raccoon and ends up dying. You're like, oh, it teaches the kid about death and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We're like, oh, that's kind of sad, but yeah. Nothing where I've openly weeped or anything like that.
Just crying. Well, like I remember, like I always talk about, I would come watch it. I would walk in the room and she'd just be bawling and I'd be like, what's wrong? And she's like, Grey's Anatomy. So, like,
oh, there's been plenty of TV shows where I'm openly wept, but no comics.
No comics. For me, I always talk about this comic book. It's called Sweet Tooth. It's it's by, I can't remember his first name. I want to say it's Matt Lamore, but fantastic artwork. But this comic, I didn't cry, but I definitely like got choked up. Like when you're like you're about to cry, but you're like, I definitely did that at the end of this comic book because it's about, I want to say it's like 40 comics and I read all of them. And at the very end, it is such a perfect ending to the book and not a, it's hard. I don't want to ruin it, but it's one of those ones where it ends the way you want it to end instead of like a twist. Know what I mean? Like it's just it ends so beautifully. And the artwork is amazing in it. And the character goes through so much crap throughout the entire, I think I've talked about it.
You have multiple times.
Yeah. There's like a war where, or these hybrid, half human, half animal characters come where there's like this plague that wipes out a bunch of people and they seem to be immune from it. So it's kind of like they have to like register them or they're trying to gather up all these people to do scientific experiments on them. And this one character who's the main character, Sweet Tooth, is going through this journey of trying to get
Instead of Sabretooth, got it.
No, he likes candy. I think that's where he gets the nickname.
Well, what animal was he?
He has big giant deer antlers coming out of his head. And he's like a young boy. It's really cool. It's, like I said, I can't recommend it enough, but I did get choked up. I talked to Jordan about this because he's our comic book guy. And he said where he actually got pretty upset was with Civil War, which is pretty pro Pinkwit right now, coming out soon. So obviously there's a big division in that whole series where you have, Tony's team, Tony Stark,
versus
Iron Man.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the big divisions in it is within the Fantastic Four, and it's when Reed Richards and Susan Richards, husband and wife, actually like break up, like divorce style.
Oh, one's on one side, one's on the other.
Yeah, because Reed Richards helps build like a prison in another dimension to put like superheroes who won't register, who are like rogue superheroes. And so Susan is like, "What are you doing?" Like, and so they actually like have like divorce fights in the comic book. So it's
All the other superheroes are like,
oh jeez. But yeah, nothing that's made me like openly weep. I do want to check out Superman Red Sun. Have you heard about this? So the idea is, I believe I'm correct in this, is that Superman, instead of landing in the cornfields of Kansas, lands in Russia.
Well, this one where it's like a Soviet symbol?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that Superman before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind reading that.
Yeah, so you definitely he says it's excellent, so you definitely got to check that out. So thank you so much, Paul Sawyer. And
Thank
Paul
you.
Sawyer was one of our winners in our holiday giveaway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so longtime fan of the show.
Thanks, Freckles. Sawyer lost joke,
Nice. Okay, so let's get into the part where I get to sing.
Here we go.
What you doing? What you doing? What you doing? Ba-da-da-da-da.
Perfect. Yeah.
A little bit of echo. I gotta add more.
All right.
Okay, Gerald, what you doing? What you been up to, man?
A couple things. Yesterday, wife and I went to go see Jungle Book.